there's two more blocks, and I call them prerequisites. Prerequisites are building blocks that allow us to have more skill. Below that is athlete. You need to be more athletic. It's undeniable that if an athlete becomes more athletic, skill acquisition feels easier. We've all met that athlete who maybe starts a sport kind of late, right? And then they shine. I remember one of my boys, he's hockey. He played, well, two of my boys, technically all three of my kids play hockey, but my middle child, it clicked for him, right? He just figured it out really quickly. And I was like, cool. And his first season, he was playing 6U, and he was averaging like 10 goals a game. You're not supposed to do that in hockey, right? And I remember a parent asking like, oh, what organization or what team did your son play in before? I said, he's never played. We just bought him a stick like 2 weeks ago. And they were like, what in the world? They're like, okay, I can't make this story up. So someone asked my wife this question. This same person ends up asking me, it's like, hey, how long has your son been playing? Where did he play at before?
On the street 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. I mean, he skates all the time. Like, he messes around, but he's never been on a team, never played a league.
Yeah.
Can't make this up. Asked my mother-in-law, which is my kid's grandma, was there. And the same person asked the grandma, where has he played at before? It's like they were trying to catch us in a lie. Because in their mind, I understand the logic is like, no, sandbagging, right? Yeah. He's played somewhere. He's done some private lessons, something.
Make your son look better than he actually is. Like,
yeah, making it sound like he just started. And the reality of that is, as you guys heard earlier, my kids do everything, right? I make them do everything because my goal right now is motor skills. I want movement variability. They rock climb, they do jujitsu, they do everything, football. And then they live outside. Like, I cannot get them to come inside the house. They're outside playing with their friends all the time, playing tag, skating, skateboarding, playing basketball. Like,
kids are supposed to be
doing what kids are supposed to be doing, right? And the reason I believe my kid, hockey clicked for him is because he's a good athlete. So the second building block, so we have skill at the top. Middle we have athlete, which my definition of athlete is the ability to move well through space while performing a task. And then we have a layer below that. And this is where a lot of people get in trouble. Everybody knows that if you're a better athlete, skill acquisition feels easier, right? It's a no-brainer. But what are the prerequisites to skill? Human, structural integrity. Do they have good mobility? Do they have good flexibility? Do they know how to breathe? Do they have the right mindset?
Does the body communicate with each other well?
Yeah. Do they have these good tools? Yeah. Right? Do they have functioning tools? Do they know how to move through space? Do they have balance? Like, these are such, you might look at them as nuance, because if I ask anybody how important is balance, that's one of the things I focus a lot on when I get kids, especially if they're like, I train 5-year-olds as well, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. I do a lot of fun games, but I test out their balance, their ability to problem solve with their own body, right? And I was talking to a dad yesterday, and he goes, man, that balance stuff is awesome. And I asked him, I said, how important is balance?
Super. You do it in everything.
Right? It's super important, right? He goes, oh, yeah, that's so important. And he was talking about his son plays baseball. And he was talking about, oh, yeah, being able to transfer weight from his back leg to his front leg on a throw. Because I believe his son is 10 years old. His 10-year-old is already having elbow issues at 10 years old. He said after he's throwing, his arm hurts. And I watched him throw. It looked like both his feet were like rooted into the ground at the same time, and there was no transfer of force. He had no balance. Okay. So I asked him, I said, how important is balance? He goes, so important. I said, okay, cool. I said, what happens if we lose balance? What do we lose as an athlete when balance is lost? He goes, everything. I said, exactly. You lose coordination, you lose power, force output, you lose all your athleticism.
Not that, but it opens up a whole door to specific types of injuries too, right?
Yeah,
Because
you can have injuries. That's that too.
now you don't have that strength within those stabilizing muscles and stuff working also as well.
But just the ability to control yourself,
Yeah.
right? Balance is, controlling your center of mass over your base of support, your feet. And he goes, man, he was just blown away on the balance training. I said, okay, now that we know how important it is, how often do you train it? Crickets. He goes, we don't train it at all. I said, how often does he train it at practice? Never. So I named, we did balance and we also did some like ankle mobility. It was like, if you saw the session, you'd be like, really, that's it? But if you understand prerequisites and you understand how performance works, if I gave someone better balance and more mobile ankles, and then I said, go do this exercise, I had him do some plyo jumps. We call it cross the river. You were there. And we were having him like jump from one foot to the other, learning how to transfer force. And his balance immediately improved and his ability to perform a plyometric, it looked way better. And then at the end, I said, throw this football. So he started throwing a football, and all of a sudden, guess what you saw? The carryover. He saw his weight on one foot transferring to the other foot.
Over.
And the dad was just like blown away. And the reality is, I didn't do anything like extraordinary. I didn't do anything that was like secret, right? All I did was train smart. I said, look, we want more skill. You want your son to throw the ball harder. Well, he needs to be athletic. He has to be able to move. And then to be able to move, we need good tools, meaning your joints, your ability to breathe, your own body. Structurally and neurologically, he needs to be sound. So if we build this complements the next layer, which complements the skill. And he goes, it made too much sense. So to kind of go back to, like I was talking about all the ingredients and how to build like an elite athlete, speed, strength, we have to understand like where things fit. And once we understand where things fit, like what box, then we can help our athletes be successful.
Yeah. It's such a, when you hear it, you're like, oh, it's so simple, but yet no one does it. And I remember we were having that conversation the other day, and you're sharing that viewpoint, that lens of looking at it. I was like, yeah, it's on paper so simple, and yet we don't ever think about it. Like, yeah, in order to do that, this has to be functioning well. In order for my car to, go faster, I have to have the proper parts within the car itself to be able to work properly to do that speed. And it's kind of the same with your body. You got to give it the right tools and the right things for it to be able to complete that.
Correct. So
We don't think of it that way.
no, we don't think of it that way. We just kind of like throw stuff at the wall and hopefully it sticks. You have no idea. Like I'll give you an example. I'll have, and this is kind of like a universal answer for like athleticism, right? People will, I know this just from my own experience with working with athletes, but I also know this from jiu-jitsu. I actually learned a lot. A lot of guys in jiu-jitsu, they're like, man, I need to be more athletic, right? Everybody wants to be more athletic. And it seems like the universal ingredient to athleticism is to just get stronger, right? So everybody goes, man, I remember, oh man, the amount of times I've heard just get stronger. Such a, oh yeah, just like as a matter of fact, like, oh, you do this, you're going to go to the NFL. Like, oh, you do this, you'll be a world champion.
But
Like,
no, there's more to it.
just get stronger. Like
Yeah.
they say it as a matter of fact. And
The part to the puzzle.
because people think that strength, first of all, you got to be able to define strength. Strength is the ability to produce force, right?
But then you can even get more specific. It's
you got to be more specific. First of all,
yeah.
Strength is a subcategory of athlete. So I have three categories. I have human, I have athlete, and I have skill. So strength work falls under the category of what? Being more athletic. So I'm not going to deny it's not one of the ingredients, but it's like it's one tiny small one, right? So yeah, you can produce force, but now we got to figure out like, so then they do things like, oh, let me just increase my squat, my deadlift. Let me, if I could bench more, then maybe I could throw harder. Maybe when someone mounts me, I can just push them off of me, throw them off of me.
Instead of just actually strengthening the actual movement you're using too.
Well, it's a microwave approach, right?
Yeah.
They are, saying that if I just get stronger, it's just going to cure my athleticism or my lack of athleticism, and it's just going to automatically transfer over to more skill. But the reality is, if strength is your ability to produce force or resist force too, it could be both, then all I'm doing is I'm teaching a person how to produce force relative to the exercises that they're doing, right? So here's a simple biological law of specificity. Your body adapts to the specific things that we do, right? So if I increase let's say, for example, if I increase my squat, just because I can squat, let's say 500 pounds, does that mean by default I can deadlift 500 pounds?
Nope.
But what if I said, well, they're both for the legs?
But they require different motions within the
Okay.
body to function.
So strength is specific to the demand, right? So the same way I can't be like, okay, just because I can bench 300, I can overhead press 300. That's not how it works, right? Because strength is vector specific, it's direction specific. If I can't say that about an exercise translating to another exercise, then why the hell would I say that the bench or the deadlift translates to me throwing a ball harder? Ooh, now you're seeing the problem.
Yeah.
So the issue that exists in the realm of sports is people are on a gross level, they understand like, yeah, strength helps athleticism. Like, yeah, that's true. But what type of exercise are we doing? What type of strength?
Yeah.
Right. And we do these, I call it the microwave approach, right? Same thing with speed. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with speed. You guys are going to learn. We haven't talked much about speed today, but that's another topic. Like, if I could just get my athlete to be faster, then they'll be a better basketball player. They'll be better at running routes. They'll be able to base steal. And I'm like, okay. So then I ask them, do you do speed work? And then most people go, oh yeah, I do speed work. And then when they describe it to me, I'm like, that's not speed work. That's conditioning, right? Doing suicides and
pedal to the floor.
right. So a lot of the speed work that everybody quote unquote says they do, it's not even speed training, because if you take any modality of training, right? So let's say I do strength work, I should feel strong afterwards. If I do conditioning, I should feel like my conditioning is improved. If I do power work, I should feel more powerful. If I do speed work, I should feel faster. I hate to make it sound that simple, right? But I asked them, I said, do you actually feel faster? They go, no. And then they describe how they're doing it. I find out that they're doing very short rest periods. It becomes more of like suicides, and they're running lines. I'm like, okay, your coach is doing conditioning, but he's calling it speed work. Just because you call something doesn't mean it is that, right? Same thing with power. Power is very important. Like I'm like speed and power. If I'm going to pick a bias, this is probably going to be my two things: speed and power. I'm very biased. I love those two things. More power in anything is awesome, right? But then people ask people like, they go, yeah, I train power. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What do you do? And then they describe what they do. And I'm like, that's not power. I'm like, that's training, that's training to failure or whatever they're describing. So I feel like there's this disconnect. Like people understand like, okay, I need speed. I need this, I need that. And even coaches will say things such as like, hey, your athlete's not getting playing time. He needs to be more explosive. So like we have all these buzzwords, right? And then the parent goes, okay, I gotta go do explosive training. So they go on YouTube and they go to a local trainer or whatever, and they go, I need power, I need speed. And then they go, okay, cool, we got a deadlift. and
then you'll become faster.
And then you'll become faster, the deadlift, and then they give this they give this explanation of how this thing is going to complement this thing. And then I'm just in the background just thinking like, oh my God, they don't understand like basic biological principles. They don't understand like what power training is. They don't understand energy systems training. I understand Like, I'm not saying you need to know everything, but if you're teaching something, then you better at least understand that topic, right? So then I ask people, I always ask athletes all the time. I ask them questions like, what is power? What is speed? Because everybody goes, oh, I always ask them, who here wants to be faster? Everyone raises their hand. Who wants more power? Everybody raises their hand. And then I ask them, can you define what power is? Crickets. So I said, you want something, you don't even know what that something is. So how am I going to get better at something if I think this random thing I'm doing is going to magically translate to more power, and I don't even know what power is? How could I get good at something if I don't even know what that something is? So then I'm like, power is strength times speed. Strength times velocity equals power. I said, how much velocity training are you doing? How much strength work are you doing? How much sprint work are you doing? Once we're able to define what things are, then we can fill in the blanks and be like, okay, we're going to train this to enhance this attribute.